Hi.
Hi, this is Renee,
You can't.
and we are here to talk about our next line of predictions, and that's part 17. And
These predictions are in 2008.
starting in January 2008, January through March. And so what we're seeing is, looking back through these messages, is that the predictions are getting a little less. They started out when we first began our path, started out with introducing us to the changes coming, and
But they're becoming
got our
more,
attention with it.
but they're becoming more in depth, the predictions.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do is present them in its original language, and we've got some definitions that we'll have to go over a little bit, because our guides use words exactly how we would find it in the dictionary. However, which definition do you want to use? And the other thing is that they also use metaphors. So it's either going to be aligned to a true definition or it's going to be a metaphor. A lot of times I find in our language is that people will use words because they grew up learning the language, but they don't always know the true definition or use of that word. And so we use
That's how we find the words.
and we also have a Greek and Latin root word dictionary that we use a lot. And so I would encourage you to get out your dictionary, dust it off, and
Or go to our glossary.
and use it. We're going to give our interpretation of these predictions
You know, what we think it means, but
based on our experience, but it doesn't mean we're correct.
before this segment, we're arguing what particular phraseology meant. And so you're welcome to argue it and to
Discuss.
discuss it, not argue, but discuss it. And you can discuss it with us if you want. And we're not closed to anyone else's suggestions. Oh, I got to get off the arm of the chair. So with that, I think we should go ahead and start.
So we're going to bring up the PowerPoint, and we're also going to make suggestions for any preparations, if applicable, in this particular video. We may make some correlations to other either lessons or predictions that we may have received that might correlate with this as well. So we're going to go over and share our screen with the PowerPoint. And again, this is January through March of 2018.
28.
I'm sorry, 2008. Yes.
Okay.
So the title of this one is All Is Theirs and Nothing to Last.
I'll read and she can explain some of these easier than I can explain them. I know what they mean. They came through me. I understand them. But she is a better orator.
Translator.
Because I go into the original thought and language, which probably will not understand, but she can break it down easier. Anyway, the sterility will be received by irrelevant thought. We all know what relevant thought is, which most of us have most of our times in this life. But she's going to explain what sterility.
So a surreal state would be dreamlike and kind of unreal. It could mean confusing or disorienting, but I think in this sense, surreality is being besieged or it's being overcome by irrelevant thought. And our guides talk about irrelevant thought as are thought processes that are really not attuned to trying to understand any higher concepts or understand an event for higher understanding.
Well, just take, for instance, how much in a day's time, in a 24-hour period, includes awake and asleep, do you have relevant thoughts of who you are, where you're from, what you're supposed to do here? Most of it is from, I got to go to the store, I have to do this event, which has to do with family. Most of the 99% of the thought is irrelevant thought to us understanding and learning a higher level of events.
Yeah, and I think in this particular time when we see so much polarity and chaos going on, what is really preoccupying the minds of people that's not really important. So they're telling us that mankind is going to get further and further away from the truth.
And we have to decide what word truth means. And when people on so-called news say, this is the truth, this is their truth. Okay? We don't know what the truth really is until we go within and find what the truth of our own lives is. So misuse of information to get better, equal opportunity mess up. So, sit up straight. So, misuse of information. We see a lot of that within the last few years. A lot of misuse of information. And I like
Seems
the way
to be like this one-upsmanship going on.
Yeah, better opportunity to mess up.
Especially, I think that would really apply to the media, the mainstream media today,
the political
right?
thought going on.
Yeah. So the misuse of information to kind of get them, or maybe promote their own agenda, something like that. I think that all of these things are correlated. These first three bullet points are all related.
So with that, it said the dawn of time. I said, okay, what do they mean by the dawn of time? And we'll have to explain it here because there's a sentence before that and a sentence after that explains the dawn of time.
The dawn of time, like when you're watching the dawn of the sun, it's a new day. And I think in this sense that it's a metaphor for things are changing. There's a new day coming.
Mm-hmm. So affluent opulence, and we know what affluent opulence is. It's the ones that have a higher increase.
They're
materialism,
wealthy, and endowed with a profuse amount of material wealth.
And you're going to see those that have that will become more divided.
Or they are to be divided.
Yes.
So perhaps that is not a self-induced state, but a state that's coming outside of themselves to divide them out from the ones who are not materialistic.
Yeah, and that goes along with the next sentence, all is theirs now, and nothing will last.
So what do you take to the grave with you?
Your naked self, basically. So real is the judgment of time. So
it's really what you take to the grave is what you have learned. And that should be our focus. So you can't take all the material things with you. Eventually, they all return to the earth. And we're going to go through a very tumultuous period of time in which our material goods, food, water, all of those things are going to become in short supply.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not focus on the material world. Let's focus on those things that are important.
The next sentence, conciliatory.
So conciliatory will be the affluent behavior re-undulating to lower levels.
Again, re-undulating.
So if you're new to our videos, these are taken from a channeled lesson or channeled predictions most of them are from the ancients who are not ancient humans. They are ancient teachers of the Creator, so they go back to the beginning of time. So we're talking really old. And they have a wealth of knowledge. They're the ones who tap into Source, who communicate directly with Creator, and they translate the information and dumb it down for us so that we can understand
Explain
it.
that sentence you just.
So they use Greek and Latin root words in a fluid language to describe concepts that are new to us. And it takes a level of work on our behalf to decipher what these words mean. And it does get easier. That's why the big dictionary. But conciliatory is that they're actually trying to make amends or overcome the distrust of the general public. And so this is the rich trying to overcome the distrust of the general public or all the people. And their behavior, undulating, is kind of this up and down wave-like or sideways wave-like movement. I think it's talking about vibration, this recurring vibration going to lower and lower levels as they're trying to be conciliatory, but they're going to lower levels in the process.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next one.
Many are opting out. That's the most interesting phraseology because sequential events will unfold in galactic greatness.
So each event.
Many of this is scientific. It's unfolding.
Yeah. This, they told us a couple of days ago in a meditation that actually the true definition of what we're doing is a trance state. Kent goes into the trance state and receives this information. But they have told us recently that most people, almost the entirety of humanity, has no concept of the coordination and the intricacy of the events that are being set up and staged to move humanity into a direction of a higher level of understanding and integrity. And there's a lot of lessons we have to learn in the process. Each step is a step in the process, and they are in sequences to produce a desired understanding before the next step. And so this is also coordinated with events going on in the galaxy, the alignment of planets, energies that are coming in, the cosmic rays coming in, what the sun is doing, and the solar flares and the CMEs. All of this is relevant to humanity's change.
Right. So superfluous ideologies are in vain. True identity not found. We can see the ideologies throughout the world. There's different ideologies, and they're all in vain because they all do not say God is all there is. They do not concentrate on what the galactic identity might be. So there's no identity because they can't find it.
And getting down to our level, I think that that our ideologies, particularly when it comes to religion, do not address who we are at the soul level, who our true identity is. It kind of leaves us to believe some fallacies about our spiritual being.
So all this makes it very hard to prepare for events of proportional magnitude. Proportional magnitude is quite large. And we don't know how to prepare for it, as far as humanity is concerned.
Right. I think what they're saying is that in tying this into other lessons that we have gotten, when you're talking about the earth being out of balance and humanity being out of balance, it's the amount of correction that is necessary to get us back into balance is directly proportional to the amount that we're out of balance.
Correct.
And so if we're really significantly out of balance, there has to be a significant magnitude of events that happen that are correlated
Relates
to
the
get us
balance.
and the earth back into balance.
So-
And we're talking about some pretty big changes
Yeah.
ahead of us.
So they're talking about a large portion of population that says their journey is almost over for many. And what I had seen, envisioned, is this is metaphoric. An avalanche, a train being wrecked, and huge amounts of people will die. Okay, an avalanche and a train wreck are metaphoric.
Mhm.
Okay, because you say, "Oh, you're acting like you're in a train wreck." Your attitude, something like that. We use those metaphors. Oh man, that group over there is like an avalanche. So these are all metaphoric.
Right. And so they're telling us that there's going to be a significant depopulation. What does that mean? Well, we're going to address this a little bit more in a future YouTube, because there's a big correlation with the number 22.5%. So, but one of those is that we were told 22.5% of the people on Earth today will
Have the
be
opportunity.
able to, or have the opportunity to move into the next
I
cycle.
understand. So we'll make another video on that. But these people, that are going to have their train wreck, they're not going to be able to return.
Right. And
When they
there's
go
a lot of people that are just not ready for the next cycle. So this is what it really boils down to, is that are they spiritually at a level where they will understand the new learning that is going to be brought in this next
Yeah,
cycle,
we'll begin
which
the
is a
next
higher
cycle.
learning.
very soon begin the fifth, as the Hopi and the Zuni say, the fifth world. We're leaving the fourth one. And all this movement and stuff is the pressurized condensing of the atmospheric changes, affecting the negative vibrational pole of the planet. Now, the negative vibrational pole is the North Pole. The South is the positive vibrational pole. And as you all know, it's been shown that the North Pole is moving quite quickly towards Siberia. In other words, the poles are moving towards the flip. So with the pressurized condensing of the atmospheric changes, it's going to affect the way mankind,
It affects the
reacts.
electromagnetic field.
because we all have our own electromagnetic field.
We have our own. And so whenever, and I believe science now is observing this, that when we have a disturbance in our electromagnetic field, they're seeing a surge in human behavior that's not exactly the most moral, ethical behavior.
The negative behavior.
Right. And so it affects us mentally, it affects us emotionally, but it also affects things like your heart. Your heart is an electromagnetic machine. And so when we have these electromagnetic events, particularly when the poles switch, what is that going to do to people's hearts? That's a question I have that has not been answered yet, but I can kind of guess along that line.
But the attitudes of humanity is going to change dramatically, but it's going to cause a lot more chaos, etc. The world is humbling. I'm talking about the world itself, not humanity. Okay, preparing for the next wave of events. And look what we've done to Mother Earth over the years. What humanity has caused on Mother Earth to go into crying.
The Mother Earth is suffering, and there's so much attraction put on to, or focus put on to, the carbon gases and the greenhouse gases and the warming up of the planet. And like we have said before, our guides are not particularly concerned about that. There are a lot worse things that are going on.
Yeah.
And when we talk about rising ocean levels, and this is the big concern with greenhouse gases, is the melting off of the polar ice caps and the rising ocean levels. And we have so many cities of large populations around the oceans.
Why do
It
people
is
build
my,
on the ocean? Because they like to look at the ocean, but they put themselves into a particular quandary.
yeah,
Every year you see a place flood, wiped out homes, and people go back and build in the same spot. They're like it's never going to happen again. It's amazing. The human population is amazing how they keep repeating the same problem over and over, which has the same reaction over and over.
now, according to our guides, that even if we were to stop our carbon production, you still have the greenhouse gases coming out of the degradation of plant life in swamps and rivers and
Volcanic
lakes.
activity.
You have the volcanic activity, and we're not even getting into flatulence or burping of the cows. It's really not the flatulence, it's the burping of the cows and termites. So carbon is a part of the
cycle of the earth.
it's a part of the makeup of all organic matter, and we need carbon.
Yeah.
However, when you look at what has happened to areas that have had radiation, especially through these
The Russian Chernobyl or Fukushima.
right, these radiation events from nuclear power, you can see the devastation is long-term and it is debilitating.
Right.
And so that's only part of it.
But man cannot live in these places, but look what can. Animals beginning to come back in some of these areas.
After 30 years.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and plant life is overtaking and overgrowing all the man-made structures because the earth will allow the planet to take over everything that we try to remake or we try to control. And we are always trying to correct the uncorrectable. That's what we're always trying to do, rather than saying, this is cyclical. This is going to happen. We cannot stop it. This is part of Earth changes.
So the Earth is planned to have a hotter climate. We were also informed that all ice caps would melt. The glaciers, everything would melt. That the ocean levels would rise, and that after the, shortly after the change of the axis and the change of the orbit of the Earth, which are coming, that the oceans will be displaced to shift the weight in order to create balance in Earth's new axis and Earth's new orbit. So you're going to have oceans returning to where they existed in ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
This is all planned event. Now, another thing.
Not by humanity.
Right, outside of humanity. Humanity has no way of controlling these events coming or averting them. You can move away from water and move inland. That'll give you better opportunity for moving on.
Let's move on. I have also had seen California experience very large quake. And when the ancients say soon, that is not how we use the word soon.
It's relative to the way they perceive the unfolding of
right,
events.
and this is going to be a very, very large quake where the East Coast and the West Coast will basically be pretty much underwater. The land will go into the sea, actually drift into the sea, and it's going to change the lives of millions of people. I can't go into stressing. Those that will be out of the area will move. They're supposed to move. Those that don't care and want to stay there, they will stay there. You cannot tell somebody you've got to move because an event is going to happen. That is not going to move people. They're going to be where they're supposed to be.
Yes, and people determine whether or not they're moving on in this next cycle due to what they're searching for and what their readiness. So how often have you heard when the student is ready, the teacher arrives? Well, the same is true when you talk about this sort of event. When people are ready, they start to pay attention. They start to seek out the answers, and they start to seek out the information associated with these world events that are coming and prepare for it. And they're moving. That sort of behavior is that they're following their inner intuition and their guidance to move to safer locations because they are planning on a soul level of moving on into this next cycle, and they're ready for it.
Yeah, and I saw an event happening in the Gulf Coast of Mexico, but I was told we have to be above the 30th parallel. But anyhow, the hammer and sickle.
All water areas are going to be precarious.
Yeah,
so I would move away from any water.
Yes. The hammer and sickle, beware. Well, we've seen the hammer and sickle, which represents Russia, took over Georgia. You saw them in Syria, and now the war in Ukraine.
They've been active all over the world in trying to sway opinions about Russia,
trying to move into more territory, take it over.
Trying to create chaos, trying to create division among other countries. So they're telling us, and this was received in 2008, to beware that this is, of course, they didn't spell it out for us, but we're seeing it coming into play now.
I have to laugh a little bit when people say, I hope this happens, or I hope that happens. And hope has no value in this world. You cannot hope something will happen. You have to take action to create the event, not hope it will happen. So we got next with October, the month of October, and it could be the last part of September also, but October is the crossover period.
And this is another video that we're lining up for the near future. The crossover was spoken about quite a bit, and it is the crossing over of planets into new orbits. So just as everything eventually gets out of balance, so does the galaxy, so does the universe. And there are ciphers of the Creator, which are entities who use mathematical calculations to determine how orbital paths need to change in order to bring everything back into alignment. So you don't have planets colliding with other planets or galaxies colliding with other galaxies. You'll have, over the course of long periods of time, you'll have a supernova where you have a sun that explodes out its outer shell and it changes and becomes like a pulsar. You have, say, asteroids that collapse into a sun. You have all these events going on in the universe that changes the weights and balances within space, and all of that has to be corrected. This is a period of time that we're entering, and the crossover is that time.
And we could be in the crossover right now or whatever, because I saw something happening that will cause people to look up and ask, where am I going? People are becoming more aware of awake, I should say, becoming more awake of why they're here, where they're going. and you can, if you really look, you can see it many places where it didn't exist before. And it will begin the culmination of events. So hazardous time for the soul's forbearance is in order.
So the forbearance in this sense is that the soul has to endure these very precarious times that are ahead of us, hazardous to our health. There's no other way of getting around it. But each is a step in the process, and we have to go through this in order to learn certain things and to enable that reconnection with a higher self that reinstates our connection to the Creator.
And it's going to take a lot of courageous authenticity by those that really want to understand what's going on. But courageous authenticity is for the breadth of mankind.
Is it genuine courageousness to get through these hard times when we're talking about survival?
Now, not all mankind will have this courageous authenticity, but there will be enough to help those that don't.
Get your courage up.
And you could say, hopefully. We don't know. So
a pivotal to all of this is Egypt. There's a lot of things that are going on with Egypt that relate to Egypt in antiquity. And so it will rise in this period of chaos to be settled by its ancient past. And
which will be a guide to understanding of why we're here.
So there's something about the vibration of Egypt. There's other things associated with this that we will cover in future videos. But Egypt is one of the main points of this change, and the changes are derived and coming out of Egypt to some extent, not in entirety. We've got a lot of different energies and things coming at us to direct this change, to move us in a certain direction.
Egypt is the key of the past in order to direct us towards our future.
And it may well have to do with the ancient knowledge that they possessed at that time. We've gone through this lapse of time where learning has disappeared, and the spiritual mysteries have dwindled down to just a small group of people. And we're going to pick up back when civilization was at its height of Renaissance. And we're going to be experiencing, after all this change and chaos and disasters, we will see a new Renaissance come into being.
Yeah. So Egypt will open. It has not opened yet, but it will open. So with that, I said that a feeling of earthquake event will bring memories of past and raise pride. So tremors through antiquity is revealed.
And I can't help but think that this also goes with Egypt, talking about Egypt's ancient past, and this earthquake event will be perhaps a shaking within ourselves, not, even though there's going to be a lot of earthquake activity on Earth, but not in this particular message. I think it has to do with the tremors of our ancient past coming forward, who we are at the soul level.
Many of us will have pride. I didn't realize we were from this particular area or this particular generation.
Or I have this much understanding that has been embedded in my soul that I didn't have access to before. Again, these are our interpretation. It is up for debate, and Only time will tell how it really plays out. But once it does, we will certainly know.
Yes. So with that, I want to say thanks for joining us, and we will put out another one soon.
Please subscribe to our channel, and you will get the notification as soon as we get it out there. Do visit our website, verdience.com with a V, and we'll have that at the end of this video. Sign up for our blog, and it tends to go into, when we talk about the lessons from the book, The Augmentation of Man, Study in Renaissance, it goes into a little more detail in deciphering the language, because it's the Greek and Latin root words and that are forming new words. It makes it, the book is a difficult read, but we're trying to give you the tools to be able to understand it. We have a second book coming out. This will be a series.
This should be within a month going to the publisher.
Yes, and so you can look for it 3 or 4 months out from now, and it will be The Augmentation of Man, the Acquiescence of Humanity.
And it's going to be an easier read than the first book.
Yes, we're very excited about it. It's got some
We've had
some very interesting topics.
We've also had some feedback from it. People that have read some of the manuscript, and they're very excited about it.
Yes, and for people who are very interested in other peoples that are outside the earth, we're going to have some information dedicated to that topic too. So something for everyone.
Okay, with that, you have a great week.
Thank you for joining us. And as always, peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment.
Take care.
Take care now. Bye-bye.